Welcome back, everyone. We're diving deep today, specifically into the work of Dr. Cheryl Holmes.
Oh, interesting.
Given that you're currently going through, the possibility of a divorce, we thought her advice on preventing it might be particularly relevant for you right now.
Okay, yeah.
Dr. Holmes is she's a respected psychologist and family therapist who has really dedicated her career to helping couples kind of, navigate these choppy waters.
Yeah, for sure. Divorce is tough.
And what caught our attention was her unique approach to stopping divorce. It's a forgiveness ritual.
Forgiveness ritual. Wow. Okay.
She outlines this in a recent audio clip. I think you're going to find some intriguing ideas here.
I'm really curious to hear about this, especially the ritual part. What is that all about?
Yeah, it's fascinating.
I mean, Dr. Holmes, she seems to go beyond, just surface level advice.
Right.
And really tries to dig into the root causes of why marriages fall apart. And one of the big things she talks about is this concept of bitterness.
Bitterness.
Yeah, she doesn't see divorce as this like sudden event, It's more of a slow burn where all this resentment just kind of simmers and simmers and eventually boils over.
Okay, so I mean, bitterness, that's a heavy word. What does Dr. Holmes actually say causes it? Like, what are we talking about here?
Well, she points to things like, unmet needs,
Right.
unspoken expectations, and just unhealed hurt.
So the little things that we all kind of experience.
Yeah, exactly. The
So-
things that we tend to just brush aside.
Right, right.
But they can build up over time.
Okay.
It's almost like every little disappointment, every frustration, it's like a tiny little cut.
Right.
And if you leave those cuts untended, they can turn into these massive walls between partners.
So it's not the one big blow up fight.
No, not necessarily.
It's the tiny wounds that never quite heal.
Exactly.
Wow.
And what's fascinating is how Dr. Holmes connects this to the actual psychology of resentment.
Oh, interesting.
You see, when we hold on to bitterness, it triggers this stress response in our bodies, and it makes it so much harder to think clearly, to communicate effectively, and even to feel empathy for our partners. We get trapped in this cycle of negativity, and it becomes almost impossible to see the good or to even remember why we fell in love in the first place.
Wow. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I imagine this resonates with you on some level, given what you're going through. I mean, have you noticed any of those small wounds turning into walls in your own relationship?
It's a powerful question to consider.
Yeah.
And Dr. Holmes, thankfully, she doesn't just leave us with this bleak picture.
Oh, yeah.
She actually offers an antidote to all this bitterness.
Okay.
And that is forgiveness. Forgiveness.
Yeah, but she's not talking about sweeping things under the rug.
Right.
Or pretending the hurt never happened.
Yeah.
It's not about that.
So if it's not about forgetting, then what is Dr. Holmes talking about here? What does forgiveness actually look like in practice?
It's more about acknowledging the hurt, understanding its impact, and then choosing to release its hold on you. Dr. Holmes, she describes it as this healing balm.
A healing balm.
Yeah, one that just diffuses all that toxic energy
Right.
of resentment and allows, love and respect to kind of reemerge.
That sounds almost too good to be true. Is there specific methods she suggests for achieving this kind of forgiveness?
There is, yeah. She
Yeah.
calls it the forgiveness ritual.
A ritual?
Yeah, it's a 4-step process that's designed to kind of guide couples towards genuine healing and reconciliation.
A ritual. That's interesting. It sounds almost ceremonial. It is, in a way, because it involves a very conscious and intentional effort to change the dynamic of the relationship.
Right.
And the first step is probably the toughest.
Okay.
It's confessing your biggest regret to your partner.
Okay. I mean, that definitely requires some vulnerability.
Yeah.
Is it just about saying I'm sorry, or is there more to it?
Oh, it goes much deeper than just a simple apology.
Okay.
Dr. Holmes emphasizes that you need to be specific. You got to own your actions and their impact without, making excuses or shifting blame.
So what would that sound like in a real conversation? Like, what are some examples of what someone might say?
Well, she gives examples like,
Okay.
I regret not being there for you when you needed me most.
Oh.
Or, I see now how my words made you feel unimportant.
Yeah.
It's about expressing genuine remorse.
Right.
and acknowledging the pain that you've caused.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
But I can imagine this step could be really tough for some people.
Yeah.
Especially if they're used to kind of bottling up their emotions.
Yeah.
Or if they feel like, hey, I've been wronged more than I've wronged my partner.
Of course, yeah. And Dr. Holmes, she anticipates that resistance.
Oh,
She
yeah.
acknowledges that this first step requires a willingness to be vulnerable, to move beyond pride and defensiveness.
Right.
It's about shifting the focus from being right to being reconciled.
That's a crucial distinction.
Yeah.
So confessing your biggest regret, that's step one. What comes next in this forgiveness ritual?
Well, the second step, it kind of builds on that vulnerability.
Yeah.
It's called acknowledging the impact.
So you've confessed your regret.
Right.
Now you have to really see how it affected your partner.
Exactly. This step's all about empathy.
Okay.
It's not enough to just, state your regret.
Yeah.
You have to demonstrate that you genuinely understand
Yeah.
how your actions impacted your partner.
I imagine that requires some serious listening skills.
It does, yeah. And it often involves pushing past our own defensiveness
Right.
to truly see things from our partner's perspective.
Yeah.
Dr. Holmes, she suggests using phrases like, I can see now that my constant criticism made you feel inadequate. Or, I understand that my emotional withdrawal left you feeling isolated and alone.
Those are such specific and powerful statements.
Yeah.
It seems like the kind of language that could really, cut through the noise and create space for genuine connection.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
By acknowledging the impact of our actions,
Right.
we validate our partner's feelings, and we create this bridge for understanding and empathy.
Okay, so we've got confession, we've got acknowledgement. What's the third step in this ritual?
The third step is where action comes into play.
Okay.
It's asking for forgiveness and committing to change.
So it's not just about words, it's about backing them up with real change.
Exactly. This step is about moving beyond apology to action.
Okay.
Dr. Holmes, she really stresses that it's not enough to simply say, I'm sorry.
Right.
You have to express a sincere desire to repair the damage and to make amends.
Right.
By committing to specific changes in your behavior.
So what kind of commitments are we talking about here? Can you give us some examples?
Sure. It could be something like,
Sure.
will you forgive me for dismissing your feelings? I commit to listening more attentively and validating your emotions.
Okay.
Or, I'm truly sorry for my lack of affection. I promise to make an effort to be more physically and emotionally present.
Okay.
It's about outlining tangible steps you're willing to take to rebuild trust and intimacy.
I'm starting to see how this ritual really is like a step-by-step guide to rebuilding a relationship.
Right.
Each step kind of builds upon the last one,
Yeah.
creating this momentum towards healing and change. But I'm curious about the final step. You mentioned it earlier, something about burning a list.
Yes. The fourth and final step is a powerful one.
Okay.
It's called symbolically releasing the hurt.
Okay.
Dr. Holmes, she suggests that couples, they write down all their grievances, both the ones they've experienced and the ones they've caused,
Okay.
and then they burn the list together.
Burning the list, huh?
Yeah.
That sounds intense.
Yeah, it's about letting go. It's a visual representation of releasing the grip of those past hurts and making space for something new to emerge.
So the act of burning the list signifies that you're making a conscious choice to move on,
Exactly.
to not be defined by those past grievances anymore.
Yeah,
It seems like there's a lot of symbolism tied to that action.
there is, yeah. Dr. Holmes, she contrasts this with the idea of burying grievances,
Right.
where the hurt remains hidden but accessible, like a festering wound just beneath the surface.
Yeah.
Burning it, on the other hand,
Right.
symbolizes a more decisive break, a complete release of that negative energy.
So it's not about forgetting or pretending the hurt never happened.
Right.
It's about choosing to release its power over you.
Exactly. And, fire as an element holds a lot of symbolic meaning, too.
No.
It represents transformation,
Yeah.
purification, and even rebirth.
Right.
It's about transmuting the energy of those past hurts into something more positive,
Okay.
something that can fuel growth and healing.
That's a beautiful way to think about it.
Well-
But I'm wondering, what if someone listening to this is thinking, okay, this all sounds great in theory,
Right.
but what if I'm the one who's been deeply hurt?
Mm-hmm.
What if I'm not ready to let go?
Mm-hmm.
How does Dr. Holmes address like that kind of resistance?
She acknowledges that forgiveness can be incredibly challenging, especially when you feel deeply wronged.
Right.
It's not about condoning hurtful behavior or minimizing the pain that you've
So it's
experienced.
not about saying, oh, it's okay that you hurt me.
No, not at all. It's more about recognizing that holding on to that anger and resentment
Mm.
might ultimately be hurting you
Right.
more than the person who wronged you.
Mm.
It's about choosing to free yourself from the prison of those negative emotions
Mm.
so that you can heal and move forward.
That's a powerful distinction.
Yeah.
It seems like Dr. Holmes is suggesting that forgiveness is ultimately an act of self-care,
Mm-hmm.
of choosing to prioritize your own emotional well-being.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
Yeah.
And remember, forgiveness isn't a one-time event. It's a process.
Right.
And it might require time, patience, and a willingness to be kind to yourself along the way.
Yeah, I think that's an important message for anyone listening who's struggling with this concept of forgiveness.
Yeah.
It's okay to be hesitant. It's okay to take your time. But I'm curious, Dr. Holmes, she talks a lot about preventing divorce.
Right.
But what about those who are already in the midst of it? Is this forgiveness ritual still relevant for them?
It's a good question. It really is. And I think it speaks to something we often forget, in the heat of the moment.
Yeah.
Divorce doesn't necessarily mean the relationship is over.
Right.
Sometimes it's a wake-up call,
Mm-hmm.
a chance to actually rebuild stronger than before.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dr. Holmes, she certainly believes it can be. She doesn't see divorce as this failure,
Okay.
but as a potential turning point.
Mm-hmm.
Even if the legal process moves forward,
Right.
this ritual can help couples heal those old wounds
Okay.
and establish a healthier dynamic,
Okay.
whether they ultimately reconcile or not.
So even if you're not sure you want to stay together,
Right.
going through this process could still be beneficial.
Absolutely. It's about taking responsibility for your part in the breakdown,
Mhm.
developing greater empathy for your partner, and learning these valuable communication skills that you can carry into any future relationship.
That's a really empowering way to look at it, actually.
Yeah.
It takes the focus off, like winning or losing,
Right. Exactly.
and puts it on personal growth and healing.
Exactly. And, Dr. Holmes often talks about the importance of choosing your battles wisely.
Okay, yeah.
Even in the midst of a divorce,
Mm-hmm.
you can choose to fight fair,
Yeah.
to communicate with respect,
Mm.
and to really prioritize the well-being of any children involved.
It's about shifting the narrative from blame and resentment to understanding and compassion.
Precisely. And I think that's where this forgiveness ritual can
Yeah.
be so helpful. It provides a framework for having those difficult conversations,
Yeah.
for expressing your hurt in a constructive way,
Mm-hmm.
and for ultimately finding a path towards peace, whether that's within the marriage or as individuals moving forward.
I remember you mentioning that Dr. Holmes also offers a divorce prevention workshop.
Yeah, she does.
And I know this might sound counterintuitive, given that you're already considering divorce, but I wonder if attending something like that might still be beneficial for you.
It's definitely something to consider, even if reconciliation isn't in the cards.
Right.
The workshop could provide you with some valuable insights and coping mechanisms
Mhm.
for navigating this challenging time.
And you might connect with others who are, going through similar experiences.
Yeah,
It's creating that sense of community and shared understanding.
exactly. Plus, Dr. Holmes is a wealth of knowledge. Her guidance could really help you kind of reframe your situation
Okay.
and make more empowered choices moving forward.
It's like having a guide through this unfamiliar territory.
Yeah.
Someone who can help you make sense of the emotional chaos.
Yeah.
And find a path towards healing.
That's a great analogy. And I think the key takeaway here is that even in the midst of divorce, you have agency.
Hmm.
You have choices to make about how you want to navigate this process.
Yeah.
How you want to communicate and how you want to heal.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Dr. Holmes's work, I want to leave you with this. What's one small step you can take today to begin practicing forgiveness?
Yeah.
Whether it's, towards yourself, your partner, or even just the situation itself.
Will you try acknowledging one regret,
Hmm.
expressing empathy for your partner's pain,
Yeah.
or maybe even just taking a moment to be kind to yourself?
Remember, forgiveness isn't a sign of weakness. It's an act of courage. It's a commitment to choosing peace over resentment, healing over hurt. It's a journey.
Yeah.
And like any journey, it begins with a single step.
And as you navigate this challenging chapter, just remember that you're not alone. There are resources out there, support systems,
Yeah.
and people who care about your well-being.
We're sending you hope and encouragement as you move forward. May you find strength in vulnerability, clarity in chaos, and ultimately, the peace and healing you deserve.
It's been a pleasure diving deep with you today.
Take care and best wishes on your journey.